I am Cam Rogers. We thank you for tuning into the program here. It's episode 66 here on this Friday, February 16th, 2018. How we doing? I am Cam Rogers. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. A lot to get to on the program here today, folks. Little NBA talk, little NFL talk to wrap up the show here as we take you up until 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I've got top 10 impending NBA free agents. Brian Ralph is on the line as we stand. We'll get to him in a matter of moments. We'll count you down from number 10 to number 1 with our respective analysis. Then later, top destinations for LeBron James. All right, so I'll give you some teams to watch out for. It's never too early to start speculating about where LeBron will play at the start of next season. Then at the 30-minute mark, I am ranking the top 15 free agent wide receivers, top 10 free agent tight ends, and then a final word about A.J. McCarron, who is now a free agent, unrestricted, so he can test the open waters and see what he can do from many teams out there like the Jets, Broncos, etc. We'll get to that later in the program, but as promised, we have Mr. Brian Ralph, our NBA analyst here on the Cam Rogers Show. Brian, appreciate the time, sir. Happy Friday. How we doing?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and of course, it's the All-Star break. It's a good time to kind of pause and think about, you know, the offseason that is coming in free agency, etc. So we do have our rankings here, 10 all the way down to 1, counting the restricted and the unrestricted and the player options and all that put together. So let's start off with number 10 here, Brian. Isaiah Thomas, of course, just recently dealt to the Los Angeles Lakers, and, well, new scenery brought, well, jawing with Rajon Rondo in a recent game against the Pelicans. But all that aside, what do we make of Isaiah here in LA and his future?
He's going to be sort of a second or third tier free agent when it comes to the wave of free agents that will sign, because he wants that max money. He's not going to get max money, but he's going to hold out for as much money as possible, which no team is lining up to give Isaiah Thomas, you know, $20, $25 million a year, especially with a hip injury that kept him out for the first few months of the season and the way the whole Cleveland thing went out. So he's going to be a guy who has to wait for teams who put that big money on the top tier free agents and then maybe strike out and are looking to have money to spend and looking for ways to upgrade the roster. The Lakers actually, I think, have a great chance to re-sign him if they want to, and if he's willing to stay in the six-man role, because they have enough cap space to sign 2 players to max contract this offseason, which they're looking to do. If they don't, they're going to save that cap space and try and do it next offseason. So if he wants to get his most money, you can see the Lakers, if they strike out on a LeBron James or a Paul George, giving him $20, $25 million on a 1-year contract. Give him that money, he'll stay in LA for the year, and then reevaluate things again next year.
Well, that's the thinking too, right? When, you know, the trade deadline happened and all those moves for the Lakers, now they have the opportunity to sign 2 players to 2 maximum contracts. I don't think Isaiah Thomas is in their plans to be a part of that, right? It was probably going to be a LeBron James and somebody else like a Chris Paul, right? That's the best case scenario.
Yeah, they're targeting LeBron James and Paul George. Those are 2 guys that, since Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson took over, that knew they were going to go after this offseason. I think Isaiah Thomas, one, gives them a boost off the bench for this season, but also kind of gives them a backup plan, again, on that expensive 1-year deal, kind of like what we saw J.J. Redick get with the Philadelphia 76ers this past offseason, where if they miss on one of those guys, they can meet his demands for salary, but also maintain that cap space flexibility for next offseason when guys like Kawhi Leonard and Klay Thompson will be free agents.
Okay, so Isaiah Thomas is at number 10 in our NBA free agent rankings here. Let's go to number 9, single digits, Jabari Parker of the Bucks. Just 22 years old here, Brian, but he's already missed 145 games in the last 4 seasons, just returned to the hardwood following an ACL injury. What do we make of Parker here?
He would be much higher on this list if it wasn't for those injury problems. He's got 2 ACL tears now in his short NBA career. He's really, when healthy, seems to be the perfect sort of small ball 4 that you want in today's NBA. I think the Bucks will he'll be a restricted free agent. I think the Bucks will put that tender on him to keep him around for another year on a discounted salary if not a lot of teams gamble and put their high salary, offer him a expensive contract because of that injury history. I think they'll kind of gamble on that, and he will want that to gamble on himself for next offseason, and try and play a full season healthy, show what he can do, and maybe cash in when there's more money to go around next offseason.
All right, so there's Jabari Parker at number 9. Let's take a look at number 8 now. Aaron Gordon of the Orlando Magic. And Sporting News is reporting that the Pacers could make a run at this guy in free agency, averaging a career high in points and in three-point percentage. Brian, just 22 years old, too. Magic appear headed for at least 50 losses for the 5th time in the past 6 seasons. Maybe he looks elsewhere.
Well, Orlando's new front office is contemplating a rebuild and have essentially made everybody other than Jonathan Isaac, the first-round pick from the 2017 draft, available. They made everybody available for trade before the deadline, and they are evaluating all of those options moving forward. Gordon, obviously, of that group, is their most valuable and best player, but again, they don't know if he's necessarily part of their long-term plans and future for the direction of the franchise and what they want to accomplish. Now, teams like the Pacers, who feel like with Victor Oladipo and Miles Turner want to add another young piece to that group to give them a knockoff version of the Big Three, so to speak. He'll be a restricted free agent as well, unless the Magic decide they don't want him and rescind their don't tender him.
Right.
The Magic could very easily be scared away by a big contract because they don't appear to be willing to commit a lot of resources to this guy long term. So if Indiana decides they want to give him something resembling a max deal, I don't think Orlando would match, and that would be somebody we could see change teams and make the Pacers a much bigger threat in the Eastern Conference moving forward.
Well, how about this here, Brian? Mike chiming in the comments section saying Gordon should go to Detroit and play with Griffin. What do you make of that?
Too many bigs. You can't have Gordon and Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond all on the court at the same time. That's just too big, too much inability to guard on the perimeter. There's clog the paint too much. I don't like that at all.
Okay. All right, Mike, appreciate the comment. Keep the comments flowing in here on the Cam Rogers Show, folks, as we move along in our NBA free agent rankings. Let's go to number 7. I like this guy a lot, Brian. When I watch the tape on him, I love big-time centers who can eat up the glass. Clint Capella of the Houston Rockets plays very well within himself, Brian, because he knows his limitations, but he also knows his strengths. Produced 13 points, 11 rebounds, 2 blocks, an assist, a steal in 32 minutes during Wednesday's 191 victory over the Kings. So that's like a nice little example of what he can do. He is a restricted free agent too.
He is going to be someone who's going to be really interesting to watch this offseason because Houston knows how valuable he is to what they want to do. He's the perfect sort of role player, big man, starter, rim protector for that team. But other teams see that as well, and because he's a restricted free agent and the resources Houston's already put into James Harden and what they're going to have to put into re-signing Chris Paul, he's somebody that other teams may try to price Houston out of the market for him. There's some team like Brooklyn, who has got cap space to spend, decide they want to offer him something near a max contract. And then does Houston want to lock themselves into Clint Capella, as good as he is, on a near max contract because of those limitations. So he's somebody I would expect to stay in Houston because Houston knows how valuable he is to them. But will be interesting to watch the action with other teams and what they try to do to get him away from the Rockets.
All right, so there is the Swiss big man at number 7. Let's take a look at number 6 now, from one center to another. DeAndre Jordan of the Clippers, and Cavs ownership reportedly approved a trade for Los Angeles Clippers center DeAndre Jordan before the deadline. Obviously did not go down because of other factors. Jordan can opt out of his contract after the season, which is expected, Brian, from what I am gathering here. And he recently said in an interview that he, quote, didn't know if the Clippers even wanted him. What's going on?
I don't know. When the Clippers traded Blake Griffin, it looked like that was the start of them pushing the reset button on a rebuild, and that Lou Williams and DeAndre Jordan would be gone at the trade deadline. Instead, they signed Lou Williams to an extension and kept DeAndre Jordan, which doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Now, they're in playoff position. They have a good chance to stay in the playoff picture as a 7 or 8 seed in the West. But again, if Jordan opts out, as expected, they could lose him for nothing. I think what could happen is he opts in. The Clippers maybe go into a sign-and trade with some team who wants him and can re-sign him next offseason when they have more cap space. Because, again, there's not going to be as much cap space as many people expect to go around this offseason because of the huge contract people gave out last offseason and the offseason before that when the cap was going up and people thought there was just money going around and none of the decisions would have any impact on the future. I think we see him more likely opting in and then being traded before the start of the season than him opting out and signing with the team other than the Clippers.
All right, so there's DeAndre Jordan at number 6. Let's get inside the top 5, folks, in our NBA free agent rankings. DeMarcus Cousins recently ruptured his Achilles and obviously on a long road to recovery, and really one of the most versatile players in the league, Brian. Finally was headed towards the playoffs, it seemed, with the Pelicans, and it was just so tough to see him go down. He's put up so many big numbers before in Sacramento, and of course no playoff success there, goes to New Orleans, and he ruptures his Achilles. It's just an awful situation.
Him and Anthony Davis were starting to really figure it out too when he got hurt. The 5 or 10 games before that, they were just on a roll. Both of them had put up monster numbers all year, but the rest of the team had figured out how to play with both of them. They had figured out how to play with each other and the rest of the team. They looked like they were going to be a dangerous matchup for some of the top teams in the playoffs. Now, New Orleans is in a tricky situation because they don't have any cap space and are still trying to stay competitive to keep Anthony Davis happy. This was the same situation they were in last offseason when they gave Drew Holiday a max contract or near max contract because they lost him. They didn't have the room to go sign somebody else. And that resulted in them overpaying for Drew Holiday. They're going to have to overpay for DeMarcus Cousins again because if they let him go, they're not going to have the space to go after and sign other players who could have a similar impact. He's not going to be as expensive as he would have been because of the Achilles injury, and people don't know how he's going to come back from that and if he'll be the same player. But New Orleans is going to have to outbid everybody else in order to try and keep this group together and keep them competitive to hopefully make the playoffs in future seasons and, again, keep Anthony Davis happy.
All right, so DeMarcus Cousins checking in at number 5. Let's go to number 4, point guard Chris Paul. I still think he's one of the best hardwood generals out there in the league, and it's a really interesting point here in regards to LeBron. We'll get to him, but perhaps playing with Chris Paul at some point. I know they want to, Brian. We talked about this before the show. You don't see him leaving.
No, I don't. I think because of how good Houston's been this year, they go into the All-Star break with the best record in the NBA. They have the top seed in the West over the Warriors. If they somehow beat the Warriors in the playoffs or come close to it, as we've seen this happen, and if the Rockets get to the conference finals, which they're expected to go to, a place where Chris Paul has never been, I think he'll realize he has a good thing going in Houston with him and James Harden and realize that's probably the best chance for him to win a championship is there instead of trying to join up with LeBron James and some other aging superstars and trying to win somewhere else. And I think Houston acquired him with the full intention of doing everything they could to keep him. So while it's fun to entertain ideas of him joining up with LeBron James on the Heat or maybe them going back out to LA or something, he'll probably, I would say 99% chance he ends up staying in Houston.
All right, we have a reaction poll for the folks watching the Cam Rogers Show right now. Will Chris Paul play for the Rockets next season? Give us a heart for saying yes, he stays. Give us a laughing face for no, he gone. He moving on. So let us know here live. We'll be tracking your votes throughout the program. There is Chris Paul at number 4. Let's go to number 3. Paul George. You mentioned him earlier in the program, Brian. He's got a player option here. And having a career year from beyond the arc, too. George made a franchise record of most consecutive games with at least 5 3-point makes, or at least 5 3-point makes, and 2 games shy of an NBA record. So the guy's balling out.
Yeah, it's going to come down for George if he stays with Oklahoma City or goes to the Lakers, which is where he told the Patriots he wanted to go and wasn't necessarily shy about it, which is why they traded him to Oklahoma City in the first place. He has said over the past month that playing with Russell Westbrook and the success Oklahoma City has made his decision a lot easier, which tends to point to him re-signing with the Thunder, which he's a legit defensive player of the year candidate, and him and Russell Westbrook have proven to be a very good match because of George's three-point shooting ability and his defensive prowess on the wing. But again, we don't know if this is something George is simply saying now because of the moment, and this is what he knows people want to hear, and he's fully bought into this season. And then you get to the offseason, maybe the lure of playing close to home in LA for the Lakers, the team he wanted to play for, potentially with another superstar, ends up trumping his feelings towards Oklahoma City. He's Oklahoma City's top priority. I know they want to re-sign Carmelo Anthony as well, but they're going to hold off on Melo until they make sure they bring George back. I think he'll stay because I don't think LeBron James is going to the Lakers. And I think if the Lakers get two guys, Paul George will be one of them. But I don't see them getting two guys. And because of that and his relationship with Russell Westbrook, I see him staying in Oklahoma City.
Well, the whole Melo Paul George thing was something I really wanted to talk to you about, Brian, because obviously the priority is George, but if they bring him back, can they still afford Melo at the same time?
Yeah, now, Melo's going to be an interesting case this offseason because he's, of the three, of him and Paul George and Russell Westbrook, obviously locked into an extension there, he's the guy who's most likely to leave to maybe go play with LeBron James, go play with Dwayne Wade, go to Houston where he wanted to go before he was traded to Oklahoma City. He's somebody who, especially if Oklahoma City doesn't knock off the Warriors or the Rockets in the playoffs, may look to try and find a chance to win a championship elsewhere. He would be the guy who would go join up, maybe take some less money to sign with the Rockets and compete for that championship as opposed to re-upping with Oklahoma City if they don't have the playoff success they expect to have.
All right, so there is Paul George at number 3 playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This guy used to, Kevin Durant of the Golden State Warriors, recently had a 50-point effort against the Portland Trail Blazers. And does he really have any reason to leave, Brian? Like, what's the incentive?
Again, he didn't leave Oklahoma City to go to Golden State for it to be a one-year thing or now a two-year thing. He plans on being there. He took less money last offseason to return. He'll opt out of his player option and will come back and he'll demand the max contract he should have gotten last year. This will be a longer-term deal, I think, 2 or 3 years with the player option for a third or fourth. He's not going anywhere. Yeah, you can write that one off, no doubt about it. By the way, fun note on Kevin Durant. Apple has announced plans to develop a television series inspired by the childhood of Kevin Durant, revolving around the world of AAU basketball. So a very interesting note there. We'll see how that all comes to fruition. Kevin Durant checking in at number 2, which means, well, this guy, the king, LeBron James, checking in at number 1. He's got a player option. So let's start there, Brian. Does he opt out, or does he opt in, or does he opt out and stay with Cleveland? And, you know, there's different paths to kind of go about this. He'll opt out. The money makes the most sense for him to opt out and then sign for a max contract somewhere else, whether it be for 1 year, 2 years, however he wants to construct it in order to maximize his income. This is something we've seen him do since he got back to Cleveland, where he would only sign 1 year deals and 1 year deals, 1 year deals, because with the salary cap going up, the max contract kept going up, and so by him only signing 1 year deals, 1 year deals with player option for a second, he was able to take advantage of that rising salary cap and make more money. So with the salary cap, although it's not going up a ton, it's still going up, and I think he wants to maintain maximum flexibility. Could he sign a 2-year deal with a play option for a 3rd year? Probably, and I think the team he'll end up going to will want him to do that, but he's going to keep signing these short-term deals with the intention of maximizing his income.
And LeBron James, of course, kind of relishing the GM role at the same time as being a player, so certainly going to factor into his decision. Brian, as we kind of transition now into the next segment, I'll let you go in a matter of moments here, but I want you to kind of give me your thoughts in terms of where you see LeBron James heading, because that's where I will go in my next segment here in terms of the odds and all of that. So give your 2 cents about LeBron and his destination for next season.
I think the moves that the Cavaliers made at the trade deadline made them a much bigger player for him staying, because they're now, it's only been 2 games, but I think they're the favorites in the East now once again, and the youth that they added those guys are going to be able to continue to contribute at a high level for the next several years, and a team that's going to keep the Cavs competitive for the next several years. Teams like the Lakers have a young core, but again, if they can't pair LeBron with somebody, are they still a playoff team? They'll be a playoff team with LeBron, but are they a real contender in the extremely tough Western Conference? That's the whole thing with him moving out west is, right, does he want to move to a tougher conference where he's not going to be going as far in the playoffs every year? Which limits him, again, in that hypothetical scenario, say he stays in the East. Which team in the East gives him a better chance at winning a championship than the team he's currently on that just retooled themselves to better fit his skills and make a longer run? Could he go back to the Miami Heat and play with Dwayne Wade, especially if they get Chris Paul and attract another guy? Potentially. Could he go to Philadelphia where he joins their young group and decides that he wants to help carry them and be the final piece of the process? Potentially, although there's not a huge allure, or he hasn't shown much interest in the past of playing in Philadelphia. New York's always an option if he decides he just wants to go to complete money grab route and play with Kristaps Porzingis. Sure. I think the Cavs are still in clear pole position for him, although I know he'll drag this out in the offseason and try and have as much fun with it as he can.
Brian Ralph, our NBA analyst here at Chat Sports. Appreciate the time, sir. Chat soon.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. Many thanks to Brian for coming on the show. So LeBron James, big question mark for him next season. I'll get through my rankings for that in a matter of moments, but we will summarize the top NBA free agents heading into the offseason. There's DeAndre Jordan at number 6. Clint Capella at number 7, Aaron Gordon at 8, Jabari Parker at 9, Isaiah Thomas at 10 there, and then 1 through 5, there's LeBron, Kevin Durant at 2, Paul George at 3, Chris Paul at number 4, and DeMarcus Cousins with the Pelicans at number 5. You are watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Appreciate all the comments that are flowing in. We got Eric, we got Mike, we got Melvin, we got Kelvin joining in on the program. Keep those comments flowing because we got a fun segment coming now. By the way, follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Get that done. And now we're going to transition into my top destinations for LeBron James based off of the odds recently released by oddsshark.com. So let's get into ranking number 6 here. The New York Knicks, plus 1,600 odds to land LeBron James. All right, so let's just talk about New York as a sports market right here. You can't ignore the power of the New York market. Plus, I feel like James would love this project of going to the Knicks and perhaps turning around the franchise and winning a title. Look, this segment is really predicated on trying to figure out what LeBron's true priority is. Is it money? Is it the challenge of turning around a franchise and winning a title? Is it staying home? Is it staying with a team that you know so well, the Cleveland Cavaliers, and winning a title with them? Is it going back and playing with your buddy Dwayne Wade with the Miami Heat? There are so many different avenues to kind of parse LeBron James's motivation here. So this motivation for the Knicks would probably be big-time sports market and an ability to grow LeBron's brand more so than he already has. Now, James also reportedly intends to sign a maximum contract wherever he goes, which would come with a starting salary of about $35.3 million. The problem with the Knicks, they are projected at $7 million over the cap. So adding other pieces to the roster would probably be an issue here. So if they bring in LeBron James, you know, they're in a salary cap situation where they may not be able to bring in the other pieces to kind of help him out. And LeBron James is the greatest player in basketball right now, but even he can't completely flip a franchise just with his arrival. But maybe that's his motivation with the New York Knicks. Will LeBron play in New York for the Knicks? Give me a heart for yes and a like for no way. I'm getting a ton of likes right now. It seems like there's no way in heck LeBron is going to New York and to play in Madison Square Garden, but we shall see about that one. It's at number 6 for a reason. There are more likely options coming up here. But submit your votes, folks, and we'll be tracking them here in the Cam Rogers Show. Let's go to number 5 here. This one's an interesting one. Staying in the East, the Philadelphia 76ers. So very, very interesting here because, first of all, not a ton of money on the books, lots of youth and shooting around, so has the quintessential big and Embiid there, and we all know he likes Ben Simmons. So think about this. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and LeBron James. That would be a fun trio, and it could very well make the 76ers the best team in the Eastern Conference. I don't think it's really that much of a hot take to say that. All right, so there is Philadelphia there. And let me say this about the Philadelphia fans. They would fall in love with LeBron James, and I think LeBron James would fall in love with Philadelphia fans. Just saying. So there are the 76ers checking in at number 5. Let's go to number 4 now. Got the Golden State Warriors, plus 600 odds. Look, this is a pipe dream. I can't believe there's actually a ranking where Golden State is at number 4 to land LeBron James. There's just no way. But sources have told Chris Haynes of ESPN.com at the beginning of February that James would chat with the owners of Golden State to perhaps think about an opportunity there. Look, do the Warriors even want LeBron James? The only way it would work would be a sign and trade, and for the salaries to match in such a deal that the Warriors would have to trade Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, and one of Thompson and Draymond Green. So, like, what's even the point for the Warriors to even try to grab LeBron James? As you see at the bottom of your screen, with Durant's player option, incorporating that, the Warriors are projected to be $27 million over the salary cap. So it just doesn't make much sense. Plus 600 odds is absolutely unbelievable. If you guys are betting people out there, please do me a favor and don't throw any money down on the Warriors. But with that, here is the reaction poll. No typo this time, I promise. Will LeBron James play for the Warriors? Give us a heart for yes, a like for no way. And certainly let me know what you think in the comment section as well. I mean, just the fact that from a monetary standpoint, it just wouldn't work. I don't think the Warriors are really going to look into this option at all, but it's interesting that LeBron James did say he would be willing to listen to the owners of Golden State and see what happens. All right, this one's a lot more likely. Los Angeles Lakers plus 500 odds here. So the trade with the Cavs at the deadline is so important here, because it opens up 2 maximum slots for hopefully Paul George and LeBron James. Whether or not that comes to fruition remains to be seen, but that seems to be the game plan for the Lakers. And of course, LeBron has a ton of business interests in LA. He's got the 2 houses out there. Lonzo and Brandon Ingram may very well develop into all-star caliber players. But the problem is, if they do, and LeBron James turns into, 37 years old and can't carry a team anymore, does it make sense for him to end his career in LA? End his career in a project kind of spiral, where it's going to take some time for the Lakers to kind of develop into that big-time force in the West, especially when you have the Thunder and the Golden State Warriors, right? So that's kind of the thinking there, to have LeBron James remain in the Eastern side, because it's an easier path to the finals, and it just perhaps would be a better way to win a title. So will LeBron play for the Lakers? I know some comments have flown in throughout the show here today that LeBron will go to LA to play for the Lakers. Throw in your thoughts. Give us a heart for yes, a like for no way you have another team in mind. But it would be interesting to see how LeBron and Lonzo Ball would interact with one another. I have a feeling that LeBron will not deal with Lonzo's crap, and you know what? There might be a situation where if LeBron goes to the Lakers, he might actually make Lonzo Ball a mellow person. If there's anybody out there in the world of basketball that can essentially change somebody's character with influence, it's probably LeBron James, and he might be able to kind of mellow out Lonzo Ball a little bit. It's going to be hard, but maybe that can go down. So there is number 3 with the LA Lakers. Let's check in with number 2, plus 350 odds here. The Houston Rockets. This won't happen. It won't happen. It can't happen. I can't believe Odds Shark has the Houston Rockets at number 2. Once again, these aren't my rankings. These are in rankings of the odds. So the Houston Rockets could get rid of everyone else on their roster not named James Harden without taking back any salary, and they still wouldn't have the room to shell out 2 maximum contracts for 10-plus year veterans. All right? So it's just, it doesn't work. It doesn't make much sense. Would have to trade their entire roster to keep him and Paul around unless one of them took a massive pay cut. Right? I mean, and Chris Paul is not going to take a massive pay cut, and LeBron James is certainly not going to take a massive pay cut either. So right now, with Ryan Anderson, the Rockets are on the hook for $101 million in salary for 2018 to 2019, or $20 million under the cap with Chris Paul. Trevor with Ariza and Clint Capella all due becoming free agents. So those 3 come with a combined $57.7 million cap holds. So this is a big-time cap hit we're talking about when we're incorporating Chris Paul and Capella and all of these players here. It just probably would not work for the Houston Rockets. I just don't think it makes much sense. But The odds out there, 350, something to monitor there. Will LeBron James play for the Rockets? Throw in your thoughts. Give us a heart for yes and a like for no way. Which leads me to number 1. The Cleveland Cavaliers, plus 300 odds to land LeBron James. So the relationship with Dan Gilbert worth monitoring here. From my research, my reading, and what I've been hearing from friends and people within the industry is that, the relationship between these two isn't all that great. And the Cavaliers, yeah, they traded for young pieces in an attempt to kind of lure LeBron James back. And look, if Cleveland wins a title, he might stay too. And James has a, like I said, $35.6 million player option in 2018 to 2019, according to Spot Track. He's expected to opt out of his deal this summer, but according to sources, quote, re-signing with Cleveland is certainly not out of question here. They can offer him the most money, but he probably isn't interested in a long-term deal regardless. So again, it's all motivation for LeBron James. Does he want to stay home? Does he want to go play with his buddy Dwayne Wade in the Miami Heat? Does he want to turn around a franchise in the New York Knicks and play for a big-time sports market? Does he want to duel with Embiid and company with the 76ers? So many different ways to go about it. And, oh yeah, LA with his 2 houses and his business interests and all that. So because there seems to be so many avenues for LeBron, I want you guys weighing in the comments section. Hit me up. Next season, LeBron James will be playing for, and then insert your comment on Facebook Live or on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. Would be very interested to hear what you guys think and what you guys think about these odds here, right? Having the Houston Rockets at plus 350 and then the Lakers behind the Rockets at plus 500. Really, really interesting rankings here according to oddshark.com. So let's summarize the destinations. Here we go. New York Knicks at 6, Philadelphia 76ers at 5, Golden State Warriors at 4, then the Lakers at 3, Houston Rockets at 2, and the Cleveland Cavaliers at number 1. LeBron James's top destinations for the offseason in 2018. This is the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. We are presented by the Game Time app. Head on to chatsports.com/tickets to download the app and get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. Chatsports.com/tickets. That's how you download, and we thank them for sponsoring the Cam Rogers Show all week this week, but especially today as well. Many thanks to Game Time for coming along for the ride here on the program. Wrapping up some NBA talk, and by the way, be sure to download the podcast version of the Cam Rogers Show if you have to step outside or anything like that. Head on to www.chatsports.com/camshow, and you can get the iTunes version of my program. Download, subscribe, and of course, leave a review. We certainly appreciate that. All right, chugging along here on the program. Bottom of the hour, 10:30 on the East Coast. Transitioning now into the NFL. Sticking with the free agency theme, though, I am ranking the top 15 free agents as we continue along into the NFL offseason. And throughout the NFL offseason, we got the new league year starting March 14th. So we're going to monitor a lot of these names here. Number 15, Terrelle Pryor, wide receiver for the Redskins. And the experiment in Washington did not work out very well. And it's interesting, the Raiders are actually rumored to be interested in Terrelle Pryor. And they certainly could make a run at him if they do indeed, say, cut Michael Crabtree, move on from him, maybe cut a couple other players and kind of improve their salary cap situation that really isn't all that bad. So Pryor, look, he brings the size, the ability to create separation, really good at breaking routes. I'm willing to believe that 2017 was an anomaly for Terrelle Pryor. I still think he can get back to that 2016 form when he had 77 receptions for over 1,000 yards and 4 touchdowns as a Cleveland Brown. And in Washington, only 20 receptions, 240 yards, and 1 touchdown in 9 games played. But what do you guys think about Terrelle Pryor? Is he a bust? Are you willing to buy into that campaign in 2017 that, okay, maybe this is who he is, and he's just not a good wide receiver? But I still think he has the ability to be a good player. Does check in at number 15. You'll see as we go throughout these graphics here, potential teams interested in all of these players. So let's get into number 14 now. Ryan Grant, another Washington Redskin wide receiver. Look, he's a depth guy, a puzzle piece. He's a shifty 27-year-old wideout. Not much upside with him, though. You see some teams interested. The Redskins, of course, he could stay with them, which I think makes sense. He knows the offense very, very well. A favorite of Coach Jay Gruden since the Redskins drafted him in 2014. Just, again, not much upside here. A depth guy. The numbers were better than Terrelle Pryor, for whatever that's worth. Other teams potentially interested in Ryan Grant. You look at the Bears. They certainly have a need at wide receiver. Maybe the Ravens make a run at him. Grant's going to be a cheap wideout on the open market, and the Ravens are kind of in a rough salary cap situation. Miami, too, if they lose Jarvis Landry. So Ryan Grant, some of the things that he can do, he can adjust to inaccurate passes. He's willing to make tough catches in traffic. And at the end of the day, it's probably a situation where Ryan Grant stays with the Redskins. There he is at number 14. Let's go to number 13 here. Kendall Wright of the Chicago Bears. He had really every opportunity to step up and be the top dog for Chicago. And, you know, he had a quality season, 59 receptions, 614 yards and a touchdown. But that's not wide receiver number one kind of numbers. So he's a number 3 receiver at best. Not quite shifty enough to thrive in the slot. And he certainly can't win on the outside, so it's like you're stuck in the middle with Kendall Wright here. He was probably the best option for Mitchell Trubisky last season, but again, that's not saying much, right? When you're talking about guys like Deontay Thompson and Josh Bellamy and Dontrell Inman and Cam Meredith actually got hurt, so he didn't see the field very much. And Kevin White, geez, we could start a whole segment about Kevin White, for crying out loud. So in 16 games with 4 starts, Wright caught 59 passes. His most since 2013. So, and his yardage number was the most since 2014. And I think that was just kind of based off of opportunity. Mitchell Trubisky really didn't have a lot of people to throw to, so it's kind of one of those deals. Other teams potentially interested in Kendall Wright. Maybe the Raiders, talked about them potentially being interested in Terrelle Pryor, Baltimore Ravens, Miami Dolphins as well. So there's Kendall Wright at number 13. Let's check in with number 12 here, Eric Decker, wide receiver of the Titans. And he was supposed to be the red zone guy, the touchdown guzzler out there for the Tennessee Titans. And at 31 years old now, he just didn't really impress. I mean, 54 receptions, over 500 yards receiving, that's okay. But he won't blow any defensive backs out of the water. He's not going to run by you. And again, that's not who he is anyway. He's more of a zone coverage beater via the slot, can catch a contested pass or two. But he really didn't do that in Tennessee. Only 1 touchdown, guys. So for the reason they brought him in, he really didn't kind of follow through with that. So it's really interesting to see what kind of money he actually generates in the open market if he does indeed test the open market. I don't know if the Tennessee Titans want to bring him back, but the real knock on him in the 2017 season was Eric Decker had his fair share of drops. He had the case of the drops. And when you're a guy that can't create separation in man-to-man coverage, can't blow past defenders in your fly routes and what have you, and you drop the ball, well, that's a problem because you're not going to have a lot of separation, number one. You're going to have contested catches, and if you're dropping these catches, what good are you for an offense? All right, so there is Eric Decker here checking in at number 12. Let's go to number 11 now. Mike Wallace. I'm kind of done with this guy. 52 receptions, 748 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's all good and dandy. But many of those yards were just Joe Flacco throwing the football down the field and praying. Trust me, I know as a Ravens fan. You all know I'm a Ravens fan. I've watched all the games. I know how it goes. So Mike Wallace, he's past his prime. He's an older speed receiver. He runs go routes, shallow crossing routes. He's been inconsistent in actually running those routes to begin with. And look, Baltimore wants to get younger and bigger at receiver. I'm not really sure what the open market will be for Mike Wallace. It might be some time before he gets signed. All right, so there he is at number 11. Let's get to the top 10 now. Taylor Gabriel. Now, a team might take a shot on him to be a low-end number 3 receiver, but I think that's the best he really can be. Maybe a very low-end number 2 wide receiver as his ceiling. Fantastic speed, really good at route running. He's a little bit soft, though. So in man-to-man coverage, you can get worn down, and kind of get beaten off the ball. And corners, they know they can rough him up easily. But again, he's a kind of a gadget guy, a puzzle piece. That's kind of how he played in the Atlanta Falcons offense. But at this stage in the rankings, folks, at number 10, there's no perfect receiver in terms of free agents, all right? So he could be staying with Atlanta. He could go to New England, be an interesting option there. Maybe Miami too, again, if Jarvis Landry walks. We'll talk about him later. But there is Taylor Gabriel at number 10. Let's take a look at number 9 now, Jordan Matthews. A big, slow interior possession target. That's who Jordan Matthews is. He's not a top-line receiver and probably never will be. And SpotTrack estimates Matthews' market value will be at about $8.8 million, which is kind of a hefty price tag, guys, for a low-ceiling, medium-floor kind of receiver. If I am a GM, I am not really interested in Jordan Matthews. I would very much rather have a Taylor Gabriel or maybe a Terrelle Pryor or Ryan Grant than a Jordan Matthews. But at the end of the day, Matthews is a veteran, and, you know, he has put up good numbers before in Philadelphia. Not great numbers with Buffalo, though. Let's go to number 8 now, Donte Moncrief of the Indianapolis Colts. We've got the Bears, Redskins, and Niners as potential options for him outside of Indianapolis. And he's been plagued with bad quarterback play, let's face it. And Moncrief, I think he has kind of Paul Richardson sort of upside here. We'll talk about Richardson later. Just 24 years old, I could see a contending team out there making a gamble and bringing him on. Perhaps a team out there that is set to win a Super Bowl next year but doesn't have the salary cap space to make a big-time run at an Allen Robinson or Jarvis Landry. So they go cheaper and go with a Donte Moncrief, which I think would be a very interesting option here. And he has shown a nose for the red zone before. He just needs consistency and continuity on the offensive side of the ball. Will he get that with Indianapolis? We shall see, because Andrew Luck has shown that he can't be consistently on the field. Donte Moncrief, number 8. Let's take a look at number 7. Let's go to the big toaster, John Brown with the Arizona Cardinals. He's got speed, he's got quickness, but health is the problem. He has that sickle cell trait that kind of, you know, makes him in a tougher position than other players out there in terms of getting injured and hurt and sick and all of this. And I always thought he could become a top-line receiver, and I still think there's time for him to do it. But I do think, you know, his injury history kind of lends me to believe he won't get there. But again, he's got good upside, he's got good speed. It'll be interesting to see if the Cardinals keep him there. And I think he might want to stay there depending on who the Cardinals bring in at the quarterback position, right? Let's say they get a Kirk Cousins or a Case Keenum. I think John Brown would have incentive to stay. So he's there at number 7. Number 6, Danny Amendola. This guy is absolutely staying. There's no way he is leaving New England. He has turned into somewhat of a folklore kind of guy in New England with the way in which he has played in the past playoffs. And there's just no way he's leaving. He's been clutch in the postseason. He's got the nickname Danny Playoff. He's a good slot receiver, but he won't be taking any games over in the future. Like, he's not going to have any big-time sort of performances out of the slot or anything like that, but he will come up with those headliner type of catches and something that you'll talk about by the water cooler that next day. And I think he will stay with the New England Patriots there. So Danny Amendola, I think, will be really an interesting option for the Patriots going into next season with the uncertainty surrounding Julian Edelman, right? Because he got placed on IR. Maybe Amendola kind of relishes that number 1 role as the wide receiver with New England. But hey, I got Baltimore right next to the Patriots. I think there's a really slim scenario where the Ravens can snatch up Amendola, and I think it'd be a very fine option for Joe Flacco. I'm telling you, I think even Joe Flacco would be able to utilize Danny Amendola very, very well. Maybe not as well as Tom Brady, and I know it hurts me to say, but Joe Flacco loves his security blankets, and Danny Amendola can certainly be that. Let's go to number 5. I mentioned this guy earlier, Paul Richardson. Really like him. The problem is it's really tough to evaluate Paul Richardson. Coming off his tenure with Seattle, and Seattle's offense is just kind of, all right, Russell Wilson, we're not going to pass block for you, just kind of make something happen and fire the football down the field, and maybe Paul Richardson will be there. Look, he's a vertical threat with major upside. He'll be cheap for salary cap strapped teams out there, maybe the Broncos, the Falcons. This guy can blow the top off the coverage, Maybe Carolina looks at him, perhaps Green Bay. They have a decision to make with either Jordy Nelson or Randall Cobb for salary cap reasons. Paul Richardson will come in much cheaper. He does have a history of injuries, so we'll have to monitor that. But how about this? 44 receptions, and he's got 703 yards receiving. Oh, and 6 touchdowns, too, in a Seattle passing offense that was just, you know, Russell Wilson throwing the football down the field and praying sometimes, right? So Paul Richardson at number 5. Let's go to number 4. MARQUISE LEE of the Jacksonville Jaguars can be very good underneath, especially on the crossing patterns. Not quite a true slot receiver, and obviously not a true outside receiver either. The problem with MARQUISE LEE here is that he really didn't step up when Allen Robinson went down, and that kind of concerns me. It was kind of a mix of Keelan Cole and D.D. Westbrook and Allen Hurns, and then MARQUISE LEE too. Yeah, he played well, but he didn't like overtake the number 1 wide receiver role that was essentially left there by Allen Robinson after his ACL injury. So that's my knock on him, but he can be a nice complementary receiver. I think it's possible that the Jaguars keep him there, but the Ravens, the Niners, they could look into him as well. The Niners have their slot guy in Trent Taylor, but perhaps they bring in Lee as a depth option, and the 49ers have a lot of salary cap space to play with. All right, so there is MARQUISE LEE at number 4. Sammy Watkins checking in at number 3. I like this guy a lot. I really, really do. I think he has wide receiver 1 potential. He does struggle to get separation. That was kind of the knock on him in 2017 playing for the Rams. But, I mean, look, he was getting double-teamed a lot, and Robert Woods was running wild down the field on one-on-one coverage. And, you know, the Rams also had to deal with one Todd Gurley, so they were creeping up into the box and, you know, putting a lot of defenders around Sammy Watkins and around the line of scrimmage. So, look, I think he could perhaps get the franchise tag from the Rams, which will probably be around $16 million or so, which won't be cheap. And they also have to deal with LaMarcus Joyner and Tremaine Johnson, too. Those are 3 big-time free agents for the Rams. So let's say Sammy Watkins walks. Keep an eye on the Cowboys. Keep an eye on the Niners. I think those are some potential options there for Sammy Watkins, especially for the Cowboys if they cut one Dez Bryant, which I think they should. You've heard me say that before. Sammy Watkins, number 3. Number 2, Allen Robinson here. Okay, we've said it, coming off the ACL. He was kind of bad in press coverage in 2016. The year that was really impressive was, of course, 2015 when he just went wild, and I think he can get back to that form. But I do believe he is the best perimeter receiver in the free agent class. But does he receive, or should he receive, big-time money, right? That's the big question for me. You have to go back a couple of years for his big-time regular season, right? In 2015, missed most of 2017. In fact, he had 1 reception in 2017. So with a torn ACL there, you know, I mean, there's a lot of risk involved. And I've talked about this before, how the Jaguars need to put the best possible team around Blake Bortles to be successful. And so Jarvis Landry will be checking in at number 1 here. We do have 10 minutes left on the program. I have promised you guys 10 free agents for the tight end position. I will have to get to that actually at another date. Lana Bond, if it's okay, we'll do the final word with A.J. McCarron. We'll talk about some destinations with him to wrap up the program. So Jarvis Landry, wrapping up the segment here about the wide receivers. He will be highly, highly coveted. And the problem with him is that he's got the slot receiver kind of ceiling, right? He's not a perimeter receiver. Right? He's not an Allen Robinson or anything like that, not like a Sammy Watkins. But he's a target monster. He's a security blanket. He's got unbelievable catch radius. And the Miami Dolphins leadership would be insane to let this guy walk. And it looks like they are botching the negotiations. It sounds like they have not been very transparent with Jarvis Landry about the money, about all of this. And look, the Jarvis Landry camp, him and his agent, have tried to communicate with Miami. Right? I mean, they have expressed interest in remaining in the Sunshine State and playing for the Dolphins. But the Dolphins are just not bouncing the ball back. So you see the teams there that could be interested. The Chicago Bears, one team to monitor. Got the Cleveland Browns. They have a lot of money to spend. They have a lot of cap space. The Ravens, they don't, so they'll have to make some salary cap cuts if they want to make a run at Jarvis. And the big-time deal here is, I wonder if teams out there think they can turn Jarvis into more than just a slot receiver, kind of like Detroit did with Golden Tate, right? Golden Tate was that slot receiver going into Detroit, but the Lions found a way to kind of use more out of him. I wonder if Jarvis Landry can kind of follow in with that trend. So, target monster, also a knock on him, kind of has a maturity problem. So, you know, he's going to have to go to a good time locker room that can kind of mold him into a better player off the field, better person off the field in terms of his maturity. But Jarvis Landry, he's my #1 guy in terms of free agent wide receivers this offseason. So who's the better free agent wide receiver out there? 1 and 2, Jarvis Landry and Allen Robinson. Give me a heart for Jarvis Landry. Give me a like for Allen Robinson. Throw in the votes on the Cam Rogers Show here on Facebook Live and YouTube. If you're on YouTube and you're watching this on demand, be sure to throw in your reactions in the comments section as well, and I'll be sure to see what you say. We do appreciate you being part of the program. We do appreciate Game Time sponsoring today's show, episode 66 of the Cam Rogers Show. Check out Game Time by heading on to chatsports.com/tickets to get up to 60% off all those last-minute sports tickets, concert tickets, and so much more. For all you procrastinators out there, this is a fantastic app. You just grab your phone, you go onto the app, and you get fantastic deals on all the great events that are going on in your area. So chatsports.com/tickets. That's how you download. All right, so we're skipping the tight end segment here because I do want to talk about this. Big time news. A.J. McCarron is a free agent. All right, an unrestricted free agent, which is very important here, which means he is free to go and test the open market. He won his case versus the NFL and really the Cincinnati Bengals. And so A.J. McCarron, by the way, will still get paid from the Bengals, due interest and lost salary from the 2014 campaign. So McCarron, having won his grievance against Cincinnati, he is free to kind of test and see what kind of teams want him. So I have my rankings here of 5 teams to monitor in terms of perhaps landing A.J. McCarron to be their guy. So we'll start off with number 5, Denver Broncos. So this is probably if they lose out in the Kirk Cousins sweepstakes, right? Because they're going to be all in on Kirk. And I think they actually do land Cousins to be their quarterback. I think John Elway is going to be very, very aggressive in trying to grab this guy. But let's say Cleveland throws the world at Kirk Cousins and Cousins wants to get paid big time and he goes ahead and joins the Browns. Then I think the Broncos could make a run at A.J. McCarron. They have the defense, the championship caliber defense. They have the offensive line that probably will get better. I think Denver will address it in the draft. And they have the run game with C.J. Anderson. I understand he could be a salary cap casualty, but perhaps Denver goes with a running back in the draft, and there's a lot of good running backs that I think will fit well in Denver's system and Bill Musgraves' offensive system there. So I think Denver is a team to monitor, not as likely as the teams I talk about coming up here, but checking in at number 5, just making my list. If they do miss out on Kirk Cousins, perhaps Denver could make a run and grab McCarron as, you know, a consolation prize, shall we say. Let's go to number 4 here, the Buffalo Bills. And I'm looking at the Brian Daboll, Alabama connection here, right? Because Daboll, of course, is the new offensive coordinator there, and A.J. McCarron coming out of Alabama to play in the NFL. Maybe there's something there. You know, it'll be interesting to see if McCarron actually sends some text to Nick Saban saying, all right, what's the deal, Brian Daboll? Should I go to him, play for Buffalo? What do you think? And the Bills are likely to part ways with Tyrod Taylor, which, of course, will leave a major void at the quarterback position. And I think McCarron would fit pretty darn well. Now, I did predict in my bold projections a couple of episodes ago that the Buffalo Bills will be signing Sam Bradford. But I think now that A.J. McCarron is an unrestricted free agent, I think there's a really good scenario where Buffalo lands A.J. He's got a good offensive line in front of him if he goes and plays for the Bills. He's got a run game with LaShawn McCoy. And look, we shall see about Buffalo there at number 4. We'll stay in the AFC East here, check in with the New York Jets. They have a lot of money to spend, ladies and gentlemen, and perhaps they miss out on the many veteran quarterbacks that will be testing the free agent waters, i.e. Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Kirk Cousins. Let's say they miss out on all of those guys. The Jets have the money to throw at A.J. McCarron. The only problem is, I don't know if it's a tempting location for A.J. You know, you have Austin Seferian-Jenkins as a free agent. There's no clear number 1 wide receiver on the roster. I know you have Quincy Enunwa coming back from injury, but is he a clear number 1 wide receiver? You tell me, Jets fans. So it's not a majorly intriguing destination for A.J. McCarron, but if he wants to go there and get paid big time and kind of grow with the offense and understand that it's going to take some time to be successful and rack up wins, then maybe he goes to New York. So the Jets are at number 3. Number 2, very, very likely scenario here, Arizona Cardinals. Why is that? Well, number 1, they don't have a high draft pick. They can't get a Baker Mayfield, a Sam Darnold, a Josh Rosen. Number 2, they don't have as much salary cap space as other teams in the rankings here, and they probably can't go out and try to get a Kirk Cousins or Case Keenum. Although, I do have in my bold predictions that they do land Case Keenum, but it's going to take a lot for them to do it, i.e. some salary cap cuts. So perhaps they don't want to go with Case Keenum. Maybe they go with a cheaper option in A.J. McCarron. And it's going to be interesting to see what the market will be for A.J., you know, a guy with not a large sample size as a starter in the NFL. But Larry Fitzgerald's coming back. You got David Johnson going to be healthy at running back. A couple of tempting options there for A.J. to go to the big toaster and play for the Arizona Cardinals. Let's go to number 1, though. The most likely destination, obviously the Cleveland Browns. They wanted him at the deadline, willing to give up a 2nd and 3rd round pick to the Bengals, but yeah, they forgot to alert the league in time and all that. We all know how that story went down. The Browns have the money. They have the draft capital, and they could bring in a couple of other free agent pieces to make this deal here for A.J. McCarron. Very, very tempting. So the Cleveland Browns check in at number 1 to perhaps land A.J., but they will, of course, be in the running for Kirk Cousins and many other free agents out there. They'll be in the running for everybody because they have so much money. All right, let's summarize. My top 5 A.J. McCarron destinations. Number 1, the Cleveland Browns. Number 2, Arizona Cardinals. Number 3, the New York Jets. Number 4, the Buffalo Bills. And wrap it up, my rankings, the Denver Broncos checking in at number 5. You have been watching the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. Did you join the show a little late? Don't you worry. We are looping it for you, so keep it right here on this video. If perhaps you want to get me on the go, be sure to download the podcast version on iTunes. Just search the Cam Rogers Show or chatsports.com/CamShow, and you can download. Follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. Hey, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy it. I'll be back here live, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Monday, wrapping up All-Star Weekend across the NBA. And until then, enjoy yourselves. Take care.